Welcome! In this video, we'll be discussing a case which happened in Valensole, France, a commune and a devoted area to growing lavender. This event first appeared in the book Passport to Magonia by Jacques Vallée, and it occurred during a time when reports similar to this were rising rapidly. I will be mostly quoting Mr. Vallée out of his book for this case, so here we go. On July 1st, 1965, Maurice Massé, I am not French Canadian, so forgive me if my French words are really bad. Maurice Massé, a French farmer who lived in Valensole, had the following experience. As he arrived in his field at 6 a.m. and was getting ready to start his tractor, he heard an unusual noise. Stepping into the open, he saw a machine that had landed in his lavender field. He thought it must be some type of prototype and walked toward it, with a mind to tell the pilots in no uncertain words to go find another landing spot for the contraption. I don't want you parking here. Please leave. It was only when he was within 20 feet of the machine that he came into full view of the scene and realized his mistake. The object was egg-shaped, had a round cockpit, was supported by 6 thin legs and a central pivot, and was not bigger than a car. In front, appearing to examine a lavender plant, were 2 pilots. They were dressed in one-piece gray-greenish suits. On the left side of their belt was a small container. A larger one was on the right side. They were less than 4 feet tall and had human eyes, but their heads were very large, about 3 times the volume of a human head. They had practically no mouth, only a small opening without lips. They wore no respiratory device, no headgear, and no gloves. They had small, normal hands. When Maurice came upon them, they seemed to become suddenly aware of his presence, and yet it was without any indication of fear or surprise that one of the pilots took a small tube from its container and pointed it at Maurice, with the result that the witness found himself suddenly incapable of movement. For the next 60 seconds or so, the 2 entities looked at Maurice. They appeared to be exchanging their impressions vocally in a sort of gargle. These sounds came from their throats, insisted the witness, but the mouths did not move. The eyes, in the meantime, conveyed human expressions. In private, Maurice told a civilian investigator that he had not been frightened by their attitude and that it contained more friendly curiosity than hostility towards him. After some time, about a minute, as stated by the witness, the creatures went inside the craft. The door closed, and the witness was quoted in saying, like the front part of a wooden file cabinet. So if you can imagine a wooden file cabinet from 1965, there you go. But Maurice could see them through the cockpit. They were facing him as the object took off in the opposite direction, first hovering a few feet from the ground, then rising obliquely with the takeoff speed of a jet plane. When it was about 60 yards away, it vanished. The witness was closely questioned on this last point by French scientists who were privately interested by the case, but Maurice insisted he could not say whether the object went away so fast that his eye could not follow it or whether it actually just disappeared. He made it quite clear, however, that one moment the thing was there and the next moment it was not there anymore. Maurice remained alone in his field, paralyzed. Now, during his paralysis, Maurice mentioned that he was still conscious and his physiological functions like respiration, heartbeat were not hampered, but he could not move. Then he became very frightened indeed. Alone in his field, unable to even call for help, Maurice thought he was going to die. It was only after 20 minutes that he gradually regained voluntary control of his muscles and was able to go home. Now, keep in mind, this is actually relatively common for close proximity cases similar to this. Another downside to this event was the publicity the case attracted caused great damage to Maurice's field as crowds of tourists gathered to see the traces left by the craft. Now, Vallet goes on to mention that Maurice was a very respected man in his community and a former resistance fighter, and really just a straightforward farmer who is not likely to come up with some crazy story like this to get some attention. He continues stating that Maurice's impression of the visitors was that they didn't mean any harm. They were not hostile to him. They were really just indifferent. As he stood facing them during the long minute, he suddenly was overcome with the certitude that they were good, a belief he is unable to rationalize because at no point did he understand their strange language. So there it is, guys, a slightly lesser known case pulled out of Jacques Vallet's Passport to Magonia. If you are interested in this subject, that is probably the one key book you should be reading. So with that, I'll sign off and see you on the next one.